So we successfully made it to Seville. Seville is a small town located in the middle of Spain. It's got a beautiful river running through the center of it, and I believe it's known for its bullfighting arenas. Before going here, I knew absolutely nothing about it, other than there's something about a barber of Seville. I don't know, I think it's a movie. The first thing that I noticed about Seville, stepping out our front door, was how skinny the streets were. I would type a location in my phone and follow the Google Map directions, and inevitably somewhere along the route, there would be like the skinniest street that was basically a hallway that was barely big enough for two people to walk by each other. And I knew from some other friends that there was an incredible hotel that you gotta visit. So obviously, we booked the same hotel. This hotel was wild. It was a collection of buildings that had been turned into a hotel. So every room was unique and somebody's home at some point. The hotel had all kinds of beautiful courtyards in between each of the buildings. The rooftop patio was one of my favorite things about this hotel. I'd never been on a patio like this before, with all these walkways in between buildings. There was public areas where you could gather with your friends. There was all these private areas that you could enjoy the sun. And most importantly, there was this incredible pool. Most of the buildings in Seville were about 3 or 4 stories tall, and so from this rooftop, you could get a pretty good view of the whole city. The streets in Seville were so colorful and ornate. There was all kinds of texture from the different building materials that the homes were created out of, as well as wear and texture from the elements. I love spending time in places where people spend so much time outside. Every restaurant and cafe had a patio that would spill into the streets. Unlike some of the other cities that I'd visited in Europe, Seville felt less tourist heavy. I'm assuming this is because it's a smaller city and inland, but I wasn't complaining one bit. Wandering around, I found a good amount of chapels and cathedrals and religious buildings, as well as squares and fountains where people would gather. From my experience in Spain, people love to sleep in. I believe I was out taking photos at 9 or 10 in the morning, and the streets were still pretty quiet. For many of the shops that we visited, their opening hours were actually like 9 or 10 a.m., and then they would close in the afternoon, and then reopen around dinner time. I'm assuming this is so they could avoid the heat of the day. And holy smokes, it was really hot in the middle of the day. On the day that I was out shooting, the light was a little higher in the sky than I had hoped for. However, the buildings in Seville were a lot closer together than most cities. They provided shadows and contrast when shooting photos. If I had to summarize Seville in a color, it would be yellow. Everything in Seville felt warm. The temperature was warm, the colors of the buildings were warm. Seville felt oddly homey. I'd like to think this is largely because of the warm colors that the whole city was painted. On top of that, the locals were some of the friendliest that we had met in Europe. One of the mornings during our visit, we decided to go to the Real Alcazar. I think that's how you say it. I'm not going to try to pretend I know what this place is about. From my understanding, it's a palace. Afterwards, I found out that some Game of Thrones scenes were actually filmed here. My wife and I enjoyed visiting. It had beautiful architecture, great gardens, and even a koi pond. This spot down here was their bathrooms. Well, actually, maybe this was like the hallway to the bathrooms. I'd recommend that if you're visiting Seville and you want to visit the Alcazar, go early. It seems to get pretty busy. My favorite thing about Seville was the Cites. I'm just butchering these names. It's a large public sculpture in the middle of the city. Before visiting, I'd never seen this thing before, which is surprising because it's so beautiful. As a photographer, I found so many different opportunities to shoot this thing. I also imagining visiting at different times of the day, the light would be hitting this thing different. The Cites took up an entire city block, and I was actually surprised how few people were around it. So we thought underneath was cool, but going up to the top of the Cites was even better. There's a walkway on the top floor that leads you to different viewpoints to see the city. We took our time exploring, and again, we're so surprised at how few people were up there. From here, this is probably where we got the best views of all Seville. If I were to visit Cites again, I would try to come in the evening. I'm told that the entire sculpture lights up, and it's incredible to see. All of my photos from this day were shot on the Fuji X100V. If you enjoyed this video, I have some similar ones on my channel, so be sure to check them out. Thanks for sticking around. My name's Davey, and we'll see you in the next one.